I want to just start by saying, you all know my good friend, the person I debated, I should just say, Charlie Kirk. I mean, I don't know if he's a bad person or not. I just think that he does bad things in public, and not horrific things. I just think he espouses ideas that are mean and cruel. And what I mean by that is he puts out tweets that say stuff like, healthcare is not a right. I mean, here's one time where he did that. Let's take a look at this. He said it to Bernie Sanders, but I believe he believes it just universally. Healthcare is not a right and never should be. Rights come from God, not government. And I guess this was in relationship to a CNN debate. Now, he may have changed his mind because this was almost 12 months ago, but I suspect he hasn't. Maybe he has.
It's before he debated you.
But when something is a right, that means that you have the ability to access it. And not just the ability to access it, but literally can receive it. That the government has an obligation. It is a right insofar as that the government must provide for it. Like, look, we have determined that the public schooling is a right for kids in this country. And the government is obliged to provide for it in a specific way, in fact. You can't just throw up a building and say it's a school. There have to be certain standards. And that doesn't mean that we have people who are forced into teaching at gunpoint. And that doesn't mean that teachers who decide like, I've gotten my teaching degree, but I'm going to do something else. They can't be, you can't barge into their homes and say, sorry, that job as a real estate broker you want to get? No, you must go back to teaching. That doesn't happen. Now, I don't know if we had a system that recognized healthcare as a right. Well, we should say this. Let's start with this. Unfortunately for Charlie Kirk the other day, apparently I think he might have been working out. I'm not sure exactly what, but his buddy, Kyle Kashuv, who I guess is also at the Turning Points USA, tweeted last night, I'm with buddy Charlie Kirk in Los Angeles, who was rushed to the hospital for a potential blood clot. He threw out his back, can't stand, and the hospital said there is no beds available and suggested he lay on a bench outside. Cedar Sinai Hospital, disgrace. Now, look, I don't know if, and first of all, this should not happen to anybody. This should not happen to anybody. I don't know if we had a system in this country that perceived healthcare as a right. If we would have a situation where a hospital either A, is so overwhelmed because people can't get proper care from their primary care doctors that they rely on the emergency room, and it takes up all the beds. Or B, if emergency rooms would be, you'd have to equip them in such a way that despite your profits, had room for everybody who needs it. But I suspect it would certainly go in that direction. And the question is like, why is this a disgrace? Why is it a disgrace? It's a disgrace because people who are ill deserve to have health care immediately. They don't deserve to be rejected for any reason. Now, this is just a pure physics reason, right? We have 10 beds. There are 11 people. Your back is hurting. Find a bench. And that's wrong. It's a disgrace. But can you imagine if it was, we have 10 beds, we have 9 people, but you can't come in because you don't have insurance. Or you can come in, but this is going to bankrupt you and your family. You're going to lose your house because of this. That's also a disgrace. I wonder and I hope that as Charlie is recovering, and I do hope he recovers, I wish him a speedy recovery, if he thinks about the idea that he should have just relied on God to fix his back, that the market forces don't always address all of our problems, that maybe we need an advocate for people who are far less advantaged than he is. And now Charlie knows, I've seen the tax filings, and we had talked about he did get a raise, is my understanding. So he's a lot more fortunate than a lot of other people.
Charlie, I live like a capitalist every single day, Shane.
Like God,
But I hope, Charlie, that as you're sitting in bed, that you take time to maybe this changes your perspective just a little bit.
I mean, his paycheck relies on, his not having his perspective changed. But on the other hand, I mean, that is the right-wing path. If you have a personal
he's a smart guy. He's
experience or
personable.
something.
He's well-spoken.
Yeah, I don't think he's a bad guy.
He could find. Well, I don't know that he's not a bad guy. I'm just saying he's personable. I don't know. I don't know him well, but I know that he's personable. He certainly has a skill set that I think he could find other work.
Oh, I see what you mean. He has
That's my point.
marketable skills.
He has
that
marketable
can be used
skills.
not for evil.
Exactly.
I see what you mean.
Exactly. So I don't
What
think
if
he's
God's
destined to.
just super
I think
about
as
it?
Charlie actually
God's just I told you not to
my
think so
sense
hard,
is that Charlie does
Sorry.
a little more reading, and at one point he will into stuff that isn't so that isn't just sort of delivered to him as talking points. That I think he may yet find that his politics change.
All right. Well, not to be a pedant then, because that's kind of what I meant. But then, in order for him to do that, he would have to, on some level, not be a bad guy.
So at the risk,
You know what I mean? Like the interest of actually going out and reading some books and using this experience to expand
Sometimes
his
you
intellectual and empathetic
Oh, I don't think it would happen
horizons,
right now. But
then
maybe.
he would have to, on some level, not be a bad guy.
Well, I
And
guess I guess time will tell.
Also, like I have a pretty tight I think that there's only a few people out there that are really like bad guys. Osama bin Laden,
Bad hombres.
Trump, Ben Shapiro,
Right.
bad hombres.
at the